My guest this week on the podcast is the humanitarian, the great Mensch.
Wow.
Phenomenal human being, one of my favorite people ever, who also is, by chance, a very funny comedian,
World class
writer, producer.
Just add world
class.
Yes.
And by the way, in many worlds, the worlds we know and the worlds we don't know.
Yes.
Elon Gold.
Thank you so much, Jay. It is so exciting to be here. Have we started yet?
Is
that your beginning?
Fantastic father.
Is that your
4 children?
Is that your opening monologue?
4.
Because usually people have podcasts, and you know how I feel about podcasts.
No, how do you feel about podcasting?
Well, let me just say, only because I like you and respect you am I here. That's how much I loathe podcasts.
So you should tell the people who are listening that they shouldn't listen to you?
No. They should listen to this one. This is going to be the best podcast anyone in the world has ever heard. And also because I happen to be in a great mood today.
Because?
Well, this morning I went to the dermatologist thinking for sure I had skin cancer. Because my son, right before Rosh Hashanah, looks at my back and he goes, "Dad, what's that black thing on your back?" And I'm like, "Oh, please be a spider or something crawling on me," but I feel nothing. Then I turn to the mirror and I see this like black spot that I don't recognize. I'm like, "Oh my God, it's over. Finally. It's finally over. I could relax now." But it was upsetting that it's a little early for it to be over. You know, my birthday's tomorrow. I'm turning 48. As a 47-year-old man, I should not be dead. And I immediately call my friend, the great Dr. Robin Shafran, make an appointment right after Rosh Hashanah. Literally, I wake up this morning, I go, here it goes. Here's the beginning of the end. I show up, 8:30 appointment. First appointment. I'm not waiting during the day anymore. I waited the whole holiday. I'm sitting there looking at it, going, I'm Googling photos of what melanoma looks like. I'm going nuts. And then I find out, she looks at it, she goes, yeah, no, this is fine. It's okay. If you want to watch it, you can, but I wouldn't. That was like, that is the best news I've ever heard.
It's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. There's nothing better than non-cancer news. Like when there's so many people out there, and I feel so horrible, and I know them, and we're related to them, and they could be us tomorrow, God forbid. You just don't know when that's going to happen. That's why I love Israel so much, because they're working on the darn cure to this stupid thing, and we're done. And people that are anti-Israel, okay, fine, but when we come out with that cure for cancer, you got to boycott that crap too. You got to boycott Israel. Boycott the cure for cancer. Is this too animated? Are most of your guests calmer?
I would say all of them are calmer.
I'm like Howard Stern. Now, let me tell you something, Jay. I have had it with these BDSers. Right, Robin? Oh, well, this is very exciting. I'm doing impressions for you now.
Right.
Have you ever heard my Howard Stern?
I just did.
Let me tell Jay. Jay is with us. Robin, I don't think Jay's wearing panties. Can we be dirty on this, or do mostly very Orthodox Jews?
Let's talk about. You are an Orthodox Jew.
I call myself observant. Orthodox.
I am too, and I like that shirt.
Thank you. But you have observed that. Orthodox sounds like a title and a standard that I don't know that I could live up to. It's like the word religious. I never say I'm religious. I say I'm observant. I love observing. I love keeping Shabbos. I love keeping kosher. I enjoy our holidays, our traditions. But religious is, I have a joke in my, I say my rabbi's religious. My grandfather, my Zaidi, was very religious. My Zaidi was so religious he had 2 toilets, one for meat, one for dairy. Nothing on that, Jay? You're staring at me like I didn't just drop one of the greatest lines in the history of Jewish comedy. My Zaidi had 2 toilets, one for meat, one for dairy. And if you're looking, you could watch this on Facebook Live. And if you're looking at this, Jay just does this. He just stares like this. Was that,
let me ask you a question.
A joke?
Has being
Let's go back
observant,
to the joke for a second. What about that joke did you not enjoy?
I was laughing on the inside. Don't people tell you that sometimes?
Yes, and I hate that. I hate that more than anything. Imagine my audience. Imagine I'm doing the James Corden show, which I just did a few weeks ago. Did you see that? That's going Jewish viral. People are sharing it. I love when my bits go Jewish viral. That means on WhatsApp, all the Jews are sharing, like, oh, you got to see this Jew on TV. And they get very excited, so they all share it, like my Christmas tree. But I love when I go Jew viral. That's what we call it. But anyway, when I'm on James Corden, when I'm doing my shows live, Do you think I would like for an audience of 500 or 5,000 to say, we were laughing on the inside?
Don't you feel like it would be a great gift for you to hear from somebody, 6 years from your performance saying, Elon, you saved my life.
Yes.
I was depressed. I went to
that.
your show.
I've heard that.
And I just couldn't laugh, but I was laughing on the inside.
No,
and
no,
that
nope.
saved my life.
Then you should have killed yourself. Because if you can't laugh and enjoy your life, then kill yourself right now. A woman came over to me recently and said, my father passed away and I haven't laughed in a year. So thank you for letting that break, that not laughing year of no laughter break. And tonight I laughed.
Okay.
If she came over to me and said, tonight I laughed for the first time on the inside, I would have said, you know what?
All right, but
Yeah.
for the record, you've made me laugh on the outside many, many, many times.
Thank you. Back to the Orthodox question. I'm observing.
Has it?
My Zadie has 2
Is
toilets.
it
Now he's laughing.
I had a conversation many years
laughing at the
ago.
setup, ladies
many
and
years
gentlemen.
ago with an extraordinary singer-songwriter, Peter Himmelman.
Yes, great.
And Peter Himmelman was talking to me, and I asked him, being a religious Jew, how did that impact his career? And he tells the
Right.
story of he was invited to be the opening act for Sting,
Wow.
and he had to say no because many of the shows were on Shabbos.
Wow.
And
That is a problem. I screen tested for Saturday Night Live when I was in my early 20s. It was me and Will Ferrell and a few other guys. And
no contest, by the way. If I
no
was choosing.
contest, right? I win that one, but lost that one. But it was down to about 32 men and women, young, funny men and women, and then it was down to this final 11, and literally it was like me, Will Ferrell, Jim Brewer. It was like everyone got it except me and 3 other people, and very upsetting, by the way, very upsetting for me because that was a dream. But when you think about it, you think of the bashert, the meant to be.
Yeah.
It's like I would have had to work every single Shabbos and many a Rosh Hashanah and many of them. I'll never forget, Ben Stiller, who's great guy, and I've met him a few times, and he considers himself a Jew. He identifies as a Jew, but he's certainly not religious in any way. But literally him hosting Saturday Night Live going, and happy Yom Kippur to all of our Jewish friends. And I'm like, you're not supposed to be there. Not supposed to be at Studio 8H. You're supposed to be at Young Israel of Studio 8H, davening. But anyway, I have to, in your career, you have to give that up sometimes. And in my early 20s, I was more willing to sort of make sacrifices. Like the first show I ever did was an ABC sketch show called She TV that nobody saw. Don't even Google it. I think Google will even say no matches found to some of my TV shows. You can Google my TV shows and Google will say no match. That's how short-lived they were. But this was on ABC for about 6 weeks. No, we had a 6-episode pickup. Didn't make it to the 5, and we were canceled. But anyway, that was the first network show I ever got. And I had just gotten married, and they said, we tape Friday nights. And I was like, oh, now what do I do? So I got an apartment next door to the CBS studio right there on Beverly Boulevard. And I got that above air one, the broadcast center apartments. And I figured, you know what? I'll just work into Friday night and then climb over the wall and be home by 9, 10 o'clock and just start Shabbos a little later than I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
And that, some people say, well, that's not the point. The point is Shabbos starts when it starts, and you got to start it when we all say it starts. But for me, I was able to sort of, rationalize and say, well, I'll make this sacrifice and start Shabbos a little later so that I can be in a position one day to say, no, this is when we are going to tape the show. And by the way, just, 5, 6, 7 short years later, I was in that position with my own sitcom that I produced and I was starring in called In-Laws, another short-lived, that you could actually find on YouTube.
You
There's
can
some
absolutely
fun
find it.
episodes.
Yes.
It's the late, great Dennis Farina and Gene Smart and Bonnie Somerville, and based on my real life of living with my in-laws in my mid-20s, also when I was just starting out for a few months. And that was a show that I just said, listen, most of these sitcoms tape on Friday night, but we got to tape this any other night but Friday.
Right.
And they said, okay, we'll tape Tuesdays. And it was very cool to be able to do that. And then when I got Stacked, which is yet another in a long line of failed television shows with Pam Anderson, that the great Steve Levitan, who then went on to create Modern Family. Yes, I missed his hit show by 2, people. By 2. Anyway, so when he had a show, Stacked, and I was brought in at the last second, and they said, we're taping Friday night. I was like, oh, God, why? I always turn into Ray Romano when I'm in disbelief. And I go, oh, no, why? Bad. Why? Yeah, oh. Anyway, that was the second impression I did for you, Jay. I don't know if you're counting or noticing, but first to Howard Stern.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is very exciting, Robin. And then the Ray Romano. Oh, yeah. Anyway, but there'll be more to come. So I went over and they said they're going to do it Friday night, and I said, is there any way to switch it? And he said, not this Friday because it'll cost about $4 million, but the future shows, you have to go talk to Pam. It's her show. She's the star of the show. So I remember going over to Pam, and by the way, I did that Friday night, and again, walked home from Fox. It's like a 3-mile walk. And just had a whole Friday night dinner later, and then did the whole thing. But right after that, they changed it to Thursdays for me, and I just had to ask Pamela Anderson. I said, Pam, I'm Sabbath observant. And I was wondering if we can. She interrupted me. She goes, I love Shabbos. I just had Shabbos dinner with my friends. I love Shabbos. Yeah, what do you want? And I'm like, can we do tape Thursdays instead of Fridays? And then she had a moment where she just went, well, won't that cut my weekends short? And she, by the way, very bright woman. This was just, a blonde moment, as we call it. And she just did. My wife's blonde, for the record, and very smart. So that was not an insult. All blonde people, calm down right now. Stop writing Jay. You're smart people, but you have your moments. I call them blonde moments. Anyway.
I have them, and I don't even have, I'm losing my hair.
Exactly.
Yes.
You have a receding moment.
Yeah.
And so she had the moment where she just didn't calculate right. And she went, that'll cut into my weekends. And I went, no, the opposite. We will tape on Thursday night. And then Friday morning, you come in for a table read at like noon for an hour. And then you go home and the writers rewrite all the bad stuff that we read. And you start your weekend at 1 p.m. instead of 1 a.m. Friday night when a taping would end. A taping sometimes would go from late,
Right.
11, 12, 1. So you have an even longer weekend. She goes, oh my God, absolutely. And then boom, we taped on Thursday night. So to answer your question, yes, it's difficult being observant, like Peter, like anyone in show business that has to, so much of the work, and especially sitcoms that I would say 85% of them tape on Friday nights. So yeah, and you're either going to make sacrifices or you're not. And then when I was doing a recurring role on Bones, and I was 3 episodes in, and they asked me to do a 4th episode, and it was a big season finale. I'm delivering Bones's baby because I was playing a gynecologist.
I remember that.
Right? Who doesn't? And by the way, if you're gonna play a doctor on TV, why not a gynecologist?
And you weren't typecast as a Jewish doctor.
No, not at
you
all.
You could have been any kind of doctor.
I could have been any kind of doctor, and but it was a gynecological doctor, the best kind. And they said, oh, yeah, now there's this thing. You're going to deliver the baby into the thing. And it taped Friday night, filmed on Friday night. And they said, and there's a good chance that we're going to go over and have to keep going on Monday, whatever. And then so there was Friday night, and then there was Monday was first night of Sukkot or something. Or no, of Pesach. I was going to miss a Seder. Sunday night was the first Seder into Monday. And I was like, wait, so I'm going to miss Shabbos and Seder. And I was like, guys, is there any way we can wrap before 6, 7 p.m. on Friday? And they went, no, probably not. In fact, it's mostly a night shoot, and it's going to go into da-da-da, and then the next one's a night shoot. And I went, fellas, I can't do this. And they just wrote me out of the show. Had her break up with me in a later subsequent episode that I was clearly not in, where she just went, oh, yeah, I dumped him. And where I was supposed to be this, we were developing a relationship on the show. And the fans were loving us, and then just cut me out. So sometimes you just have to say to yourself, you know what matters?
I stopped watching the show after that. but-
Right?
Yeah.
And the whole world did.
Yeah.
It was canceled 2 years later.
Yeah.
But anyway, but listen, that was upsetting. And whether or not you could say, well, what happened to religious discrimination? Why didn't they respect your? Because certainly, I'm sure there are a couple other religions out there that they would have been like, oh yeah, we'll accommodate your schedule. But Jews, you know how they treat Jews in show business. I love how they think the Jews run Hollywood. Meanwhile, look at me. If the Jews ran Hollywood, do you think I'd be doing this podcast?
Let me ask you.
I would have a series on television. If the Jews ran Hollywood, do you think I'd be
Elon,
here on the 19th floor
I hate to interrupt you.
of Jay's
Can
office?
Can we go backwards in your life?
Yes.
As opposed to.
Should I lie down for this?
Yes.
There is a couch here. How far back are we going?
I
had a very non-traumatic childhood. just so you
Okay.
know.
Did you have a Jewish aha moment when you were younger? A moment where all the Judaism kind of took
No.
shape for you?
I think I had several moments. First of all, I was raised in an observant home. That being said, both my brothers left the business. My younger brother's gay, so he
Left the business or left the Jewish
the Jew business.
the Jew business? Okay, that's what I thought you meant.
Yeah, they younger brother just sort of was grappling with, while he identifies very proudly as a Jew, the religion of it all and the Orthodox community that was anything but embracing to him sort of, had him be disillusioned by the whole Orthodox world. So he left it for that reason. But again, he's always there at every holiday, and he's in my sukkah, and he doesn't luckily have this self-hating thing. Like I say, he's a very proud Jew, and he's a recording artist, so he's out with his gayness and Jewness. He'll wear a big Magen David, and he'll identify as a gay Jew, but Orthodox Judaism he left. And then my older brother Stephen, the Grammy-winning, we have Ari Gold, not the guy from Entourage. We have Stephen Gold. Stephen is a Grammy-winning composer and producer of television shows, and he left because he's a hedonist, and he enjoys a life of hedonism too much.
Does he show up at your Shabbos table?
He absolutely showed up on Rosh Hashanah to a Shabbos table, but after probably a binge of some sort.
All right. Speaking of food.
But I didn't have aha moments, but I had several. And one of
Okay.
them was I went to Yeshiva University High School, MTA, and one of them was I was 14, and I had put on tefillin for the first time when I was 13. And I enjoyed it, but I said, yeah, I'm not doing this every day. And then for the first year and a half, I just didn't do it. I didn't continue it. And then there was a young rabbi who inspired me to put it on every day. And ever since then, I don't miss a day. Put it on this morning, Jay. How about you?
So
anyway, our next guest
Yeah,
is. Did
so
you
one
hear
of the-
that pause?
So one of the questions I ask all my guests is around food. We were talking about your Shabbos table. Elon, do you have a favorite Jewish food memory?
First of all, I have a classic bit about Jews and food, right?
Okay, so maybe I was leading in for you.
Oh, maybe this was you being the great host, where you throw the question.
The host of the podcast, and there should be no podcast.
Right. And you throw the question, and that leads into a bit. You are a good host.
Or maybe we should just perform together. I should just be your.
That's never going to
statement.
happen.
Okay.
Anyway,
Because that's just curious. It won't happen because.
I only work with professionals. That's
That's definitely true.
the bit that I have, and you could just Google Elon Gold on James Corden, and I do it in front of an audience that laughed, and not on Jay, who will laugh on the inside, which is why I refuse to do this bit in its entirety or to its fullest, because I don't want to be out here performing like a monkey and then Jay just smiles. It's not even a smile, it's actually a smirk. Not only do I not get a laugh, I don't get a full smile. I get a half smirk. It's like this. If you're watching at home, this is what I'm looking at.
I think part of the aging process is some of those lines go away, so I'm really smiling.
Oh, I appreciate it. So Jews obviously were obsessed with food, and You know what was interesting? Actually, this will make for a better story and a better podcast story than me doing the bit, because anyone can Google the bit. But the premise, but what happened after the bit was interesting. So the premise of the bit is that Jews are just like everybody else. You know, it's funny because I have 2 acts when I perform for just Jews and do your federation events and your great, Stand With Us galas and all these Jewish events that I love doing. It's a totally different act. And when I know it's just a Jewish audience, I can go really deep and talk about being in a sukkah and make Seder plate jokes and all that stuff that a non-Jewish audience would never even get. And I get to really talk about, our similarities and our differences between us and the non-Jews. When I'm in front of non-Jewish audiences, I do the opposite. I like to talk about that we're not different. We're no different than you guys. That Jews are just like everybody else. We all have the 3 basic human needs: sex, money, and food. We just want them in a different order. And I say, so we have that difference, but we're really just, I just want to humanize us and say that we're all one God's people, and say that, the message of this bit is that, don't think that Jews are this weird, group that does their own weird things. Sure, we do, by the way. We do our own little weird things. But my message is, but we're all, God's people, and we're all one human race, and we have the 3 basic human needs. We just have them in a different order. So food is our number 1. Then money, and then I go, yeah, sex is last, right? In fact, if you hear a Jewish guy be like, oh man, I got to get me some of that, he's standing over a deli counter, okay? Because we're obsessed with cold cuts. So you could look at the bit. So anyway, so I do this bit. And again, this bit in my head is so exciting to me because, one, I'm putting our people out there in a positive light, in, saying that we have these commonalities as human beings. But more importantly, what that bit does is it dispels the stereotype that we're obsessed with money, which isn't true, which literally is just a canard. And it's just the oldest stereotype. Jews, they love money. And it's like, no, we don't love money. We love food. And one of the lines is, we only need money to get food. Right. So it's like, and I've been doing this bit for like almost a decade. And whenever I do it in front of non-Jewish audiences or at a comedy club or wherever, I will say, sex, money, and food, we just want them in a different order. Our number 1, and I take the mic and I put it out there, is what? And the entire audience in unison, and it happened on James Corden's show too, yells, money. And I go, how dare you? It's food. And I correct them, and I go, food, and I explain why food is, and I go, and then money, because everyone needs money and whatever. To everyone, money's in the top 3. You need money to survive in life, in society. And then sex is last for us. But I'm trying to, refute this stereotype, and I'm taking it on, and I'm addressing it, and then I'm refuting it and steering them into the food direction. So what happens? I get like, I don't know, 100-something texts from friends. This is an amazing appearance you did. This is hilarious. I get like literally nothing but love. And then all of a sudden, and it was like 3 in a row. It was really weird. I get a text from a fellow comedian, a call from another guy, and then a guy in my shul who said, I did not like that. You were perpetuating these anti-Semitic tropes. And I was like, oh my God.
We're oversensitive.
Not only oversensitive, but they missed
the point. Yeah.
The whole point. Like why I love doing that bit so much is because it dispels and not perpetuates. It does the opposite of perpetuating a stereotype. And, of course I have to play into it a little just to get the message out there. But for me, this is like, the only thing I'm even prouder of is when I went on the old Tonight Show with Jay Leno and I did my Hamas hummus bit.
Yeah, it's a great bit.
Yeah, it's a great bit. But the message of the bit, and there's a line in there where I say, how can people elect an evil terrorist group? They must have mistook them for a yummy Mediterranean dip. They must have been at the ballots like, hummus? Yes, of course we want hummus. We love hummus. And the message of that bit is, you know what? there's got to be some accountability for electing Hamas, for putting a terrorist group in power. And to me, even though it's this goofy comedy bit about hummus and all that stuff, I love the fact that I got the message out there that, I care about the Palestinian plight. I don't want to see them suffering, but they got to stop electing people like Arafat and Abbas and Hamas, and they got to, really, really get organized in a much better, smarter way.
So you travel around the world, you perform around the world. You're just in Australia, you perform in Israel, you perform all over the world. You're very involved in the Jewish community here in Los Angeles. What would you say the greatest challenge is facing the Jewish people today? I know it's a very serious question.
Oof, wow, did we just shift gears?
Because you're a serious guy. I want to get to the serious part of you.
God.
And I have 4 questions. Is one of the
You
4
do
questions.
have 4. Is that the theme? Do you have 4 questions?
That's the name of the podcast. You're not paying attention?
No. I
Jay's
did see
4
that.
questions.
I did see that on my
That's
way in, but
question
then I
number
forgot
3.
it. That is
You've done well with the
by the
first
way,
3.
that is a good title.
Thank you.
That is a good title, Jay's 4 questions. On the Late Late Show before with Craig Ferguson, he had a thing called 5 questions.
Yeah.
But this is even better because it's got that Jewish Pesach angle. Have we done other questions in this podcast?
we've done 2. This is the
Which were the first
Jewish aha moment.
moment, okay.
Favorite food memory. You didn't answer it. You danced
no, I did
around
not
it.
answer it. I went.
And now we're on greatest challenge facing the Jewish people. The 4th question.
I don't even want to hear the 4th.
I'll tease it for you. The 4th question is about. It's the greatest impression you do.
Oh, very good.
The question's about God.
We'll close with that. Question about God.
Yeah, it's God. I know you do an impression of God. It's what God is in all of us.
We all do, right? We all
right.
do impressions of God.
Yeah.
The greatest threat facing challenge, not threat.
Yeah.
Oh, because
if you want it to be a threat, but
there's
it's
a
challenge.
big difference between challenge and threat. I mean, there's so many things that
what rises to the top for you?
Israel,
you're in my job today.
Yeah.
What's the thing you're going to deal with today?
I think it's Israel. It's the BDSers. It's the crazy, crazy, crazy left. Now, I'm a moderate because I am neither to the left or to the right. I don't, I see both sides on way too many issues to ever pick a side. And you know what I mean? Like socially liberal with gay marriage and women's rights and all that stuff. But on so many other things, like Israel, way to the right, where it's just like, we need to be here for our survival. If we're too liberal and too giving, this has never been good for us to be that way. But I think the whole movement on campuses, thinking about, because it's probably in the forefront of my head because I have a son that's going to hit college next year, and I don't want him to be confronted and assaulted by these haters who are filled with misinformation and lies and just false narratives and hatred, really, more than anything. And I don't want him to face that. So the whole campus, that's why I love Stand With Us so much and the work they do. But I don't want, him to have to deal with that, or any kid. I don't like, just in general, that whole movement to about recording artists and having them. I mean, the worst thing in the world is boycotting, and boycotting a country. Literally, how many artists would be boycotting the U.S. because they hate Trump? Like, just so many. But you can't boycott because you don't like a policy or an Israeli government or whatever. But the truth is, again, it's all just anti-Semitism, and it's all just not.
But when you're traveling and performing, you perform to, as you said, non-Jewish audiences as well.
Yes.
Do you experience any anti-Semitism in your comedy touring?
Not to such a level where it's that overt and where I'll get heckled, things. But it's more of a story that comes to mind is when I was in Kentucky, and this guy comes over to me after the show who booked me on the show, and he literally says this to me. He goes, "You know why I brought you Jews down here?" And I was like, "Are there others?" It looks like it's just me. I'm not a part of a comedy team. But he literally did the plural. "You know I brought you Jews down." He goes, "'Cause you Jews is funny." He goes, "You Jews, I'm gonna think about all them funny Jews." And he starts listing. You got Jerry Steinenfeld and Adam Sandlerberg. He was adding Jewishness to already pretty Jewish names. And he was like, "You Jews is funny as hell," which incidentally is the place you're going to burn. And I was like, "Oh, this is good." So it's that kind of anti-Semitism.
That was after the performance?
That
or
was
before?
after the performance. And I literally went to my hotel room, locked the door, and I think I slept in my clothes, so I was ready for a quick exit. And then I just went, yeah, wow, it's really out there. But other than that hate incident that I wrote about, Google it, where people screamed at, our children.
Well, that
I
was
hope
here
your
in Los
children
Angeles.
die.
Right.
Yeah, here in Los Angeles. Yeah, I hope your children die just like you're killing children in Gaza. This is what was yelled at to me here in Los Angeles. I haven't killed anybody. I don't know if you heard. But that was a very frightening moment. And that kind of attack and that kind of vitriol and that anti-Semitism, when that hit me, when I'm with my family and my kids, that affected me more than anything, more than being on stage and someone, Jew, whatever, I don't care, that bothers me. But that was like a really threatening attack because our lives are being threatened, and that's no fun. That's scary. And a reason an attack like that happens is because people are emboldened to say things like, "You're killing, babies in Gaza," when it's completely not true. There's no, IDF that aims at babies, and the horrible, tragic casualties of war are from wars that are not, started and instigated by Israel. It's always defensive. Every war from 48, 67 has always been defensive, and when there are civilian casualties on both sides, it's because of this defensive war of survival. And nobody wants to see anyone dead, babies or not. But when you get that as we say, fake news, that Israel is killing babies, I mean, it's insane. And that, if I heard that a country was killing babies, I would also start screaming at the people from that country. And
Right.
go, "Your people are killing babies." You just get angry. Nobody
Right.
wants to hear about killing babies.
Right.
But it's misinformation. It's lies.
100%.
Yeah.
So because you love podcasts so much, and because I'm teaching you about how to do a great podcast,
Yes.
because you'll do your own,
Oh
here's
my God.
here's what
I can't wait.
This is what a bad segue sounds like.
Okay, go ahead.
Now that we're finished talking about this,
Yes.
if you had,
Let's talk about that.
if
Yeah.
you could ask God one question.
Yeah, by the way, before you ask this, have we broken Saget's record? Because all I want to do is break Bob Saget. Bob's a friend of mine, and yet all friends have competitive
Yeah.
elements to them, and we are competitive
It
as
certainly
comedians.
feels like we have, even though we might
Ooh,
not.
that
Now-
hurts.
Now,
That
but if you could
hurts.
ask,
I'm trying.
This is
I'm
a,
giving.
By the way, this is a
Have we
question that
broken the
Bob had a
Saget
great.
record? 33 minutes.
Bob
Oh,
had a
God,
Bob had
that's
a
it?
great answer to this. It was a very long answer to this question,
Yes.
but if you could ask God one question, what would be the one question you'd ask God, Elon?
I think it's the oldest question in the book. It's the "why do bad things happen to good people" question. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that covers everything. That
It
covers
does.
the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And that covers human suffering.
Yep.
And that covers cancer.
Yeah.
And all of that. And it's just like, but why would you do that? I was just thinking the other day, if I had one question, people were, who asked? Oh, the Jewish Journal was asking me if at your
That's a
sukkah-
local Jewish newspaper.
at
right
the
there.
local Jewish newspaper.
Yeah.
I know this is a global podcast. I didn't mean to reference anything local that happens to be in this
In
building.
China, people listen to this podcast in China.
I
right?
understand that. And why, no one knows. But anyway, the Jewish Journal is a local paper, and they asked me to, like, who would your sukkah guests be? You want to now explain what a sukkah is?
I'm doing that one as well.
Great. So I wrote back a couple of ideas, like Golda Meir, because she was always so witty and sharp and funny. I would love to hear her take on the modern
Good
world.
cigarette smoker. She was
Great. We'd smoke cigars and
Yeah.
cigarettes together, and you're allowed to smoke in the sukkah and on
Yeah.
Sukkot. But the other one is, I would love to have Noah's neighbor, his next door neighbor, just so I can ask the question. So when you heard all that construction and banging next door morning, noon, and night didn't pique your curiosity at all? Like, what's happening here? No, what are we doing? Why are you building this thing? It's like, oh, yeah. And then you have one of two choices. You either start kissing Noah's ass to get a seat on that ark, or you start building your own. But the fact that Noah's neighbor just ignored all that banging and clopping morning, noon, and night, the guy's building an ark right next door. Wouldn't you want to sit and ask Noah's neighbor this question?
Are you working through new material now?
This will never be material. Nor would I ever do material on this podcast, because I don't want to stare at someone and his half grin.
Now, you're the only guest I've had on the podcast, and we're closing in on a year's anniversary.
Right. Mazel tov, by
thank
the
you.
way. What an accomplishment.
Thank you. It's a highlight. But of my career, certainly, it's a highlight right now. So we've never had anyone do impressions. You've done 2 impressions.
Yes.
You're known as someone who does great impressions.
Yes.
Do you
Again, a world-class impressionist.
Do you have a favorite?
I've done Jay
impression?
Leno on Jay Leno. I've done Howard Stern on Howard Stern.
Do you have a favorite impression that you do?
Yes. Jeff Goldblum. And Jeff is a friend. And through the impression and because of the impression, we became friends. And we would do dueling Goldblums on like TV shows.
Does he do an impression of you?
No, he does not. But he, it's my favorite impression because he's like, one of the greatest actors. And the reason like everyone does impressions of like a Christopher Walken.
Right.
Is because he has such a unique style and voice. And that's the makings of a great actor, just has such a strong, singular persona like Jack Nicholson. Everyone did a Jack Nicholson because he has got that thing, that Jack thing that only Jack has. So Jeff has that too. And when I was a kid, I would watch The Fly. I saw that movie, The Fly, with my brother Steven, and we just like fell in love. We went back and saw it 5 times in the theater, and I was obsessed with Jeff. And by like the 3rd time seeing it, as a guy that can do impressions, this is a God-given talent. I don't take credit for this. Sometimes it just hits you, the impression, and you just go, oh, I'm literally feeling it. I feel like him, and I could do him. And, like I'll do it for you and for the listeners at home. Just give me a premise of Jeff Goldblum doing something, and I will do the Jeff Goldblum impression.
Jeff Goldblum hosting Jay's 4 Questions.
Oh, okay. Yes, I like podcasts. They're good. They're very good. But also nutritious. Yes. And I love the idea of the 4 questions because it has that Passover theme. And yet here we are, far from Passover, many holidays away, but always aware of our Jewishness and our Yiddishkeit, so to speak. Yes.
So would you ever consider...
Did you see the response to that? He asks me to do an impression. I go on this fun little riff as Jeff Goldblum. He stares at me and then just goes...
I take you very seriously, Elon.
So, did you ever... Not even like, hey, that was fun. Thanks for sharing
fantastic.
your comedic gifts with us. Thank you for allowing me this pleasure of
I'm laughing
your
on the outside for
genius
sure.
talents.
Did you ever think about maybe adding to your
Never doing a
repertoire?
podcast again?
And how
Yes,
about
every second of this last 42 minutes.
How about thinking about doing a podcast of like me?
You mean me having a podcast or just doing a podcast about
No,
you?
I misspoke. I mean an impression of me.
I'm you know what? I'm working on it. There's a little bit of a gravelly, it's a little bit of a Les Moonves thing in there, so you got to be careful. There's a little of that, right? There's a little gravelly. I'll have it by next podcast. Give me another. Remember, it took 3 flies to get the Goldblum. So give me another podcast.
So you're going to do my podcast again? You're committing?
Probably not. However, the thought of me nailing the impression of you happening after this imaginary second appearance is. I just put that out there.
So before we get into the lightning round, we have the end of the.
There's a speed round. How are we doing on Saget, on beating Saget? Have we beaten Bob Saget yet? We're going to get a number now. We're at 40. Oh, This really does feel like 3 hours. By the way, at this point,
Why don't I get credit when I laugh? Why is there no credit?
It's true
for
because
me?
you only laugh at the self-deprecating stuff and not the actual comedy. What does that say about you?
Maybe that's a note for you.
No. Maybe that says something deep about you. That when I'm trying to do comedy, when I'm trying to be funny, you stare. And when I say something negative about myself, you crack up. What does that say about you? That you want to see me be negative about myself?
Enough about you. Let me talk about me for a second.
Yes.
So you said before we started, privately to me, that I'm not funny. So I'm wondering, do you have any advice to make me funnier?
By the way, let me preface this because now your audience thinks, wow, what a jerk. You just went over to the guy and went, hey, by the way, you're not funny. I'll preface this by saying, in greeting Jay, as a humorous greeting, I said, Jay, good to see you. Why do you have a podcast? You're not funny or entertaining. You're a great man who does incredible things for the community at large. What are you doing with my stupid comedian friends have podcasts because they have nothing better to do all day. You actually have stuff to do all day.
I do have stuff to do.
So what are you wasting your time for? So that's what I said. I did not just go, hey, Jay, you're not funny.
That being said,
by the way, no one is listening at this point. We're 42 minutes.
Do you have any advice? I actually think people are going to want this to go on forever,
which is so sad because they missed the Goldblum. People who have turned this off because they have lives and things to do.
But let's before we get to the end.
Who listens to this?
Do you have any comedic advice?
Is it Jews and non-Jews?
I think everyone does.
Does the world listen to this?
Can you give me some comedic advice to be funnier?
Yes. You want the truth?
Yes.
You have an excellent sense of humor.
Thank you very much.
It's dry.
Thank you.
And you have a great wit about you.
Thank you.
So my advice is do nothing but don't change a thing.
Wow.
Continue doing what you're doing. But if I want to say that you're not funny as my own funny riff, then I'm going to say that. The truth is you are funny, which bothers me because why should you be funny? You're not.
So do you have any career advice to...
career advice? Have you seen my career? You do not want career advice from me. I've had 5 canceled television shows.
I want you to know something.
I've had, nothing but surus in my career.
Jewish community dinners are... I'm going to get myself in trouble here. Jewish community dinners are generally dreadful.
I agree.
And everyone that you perform at,
That's
you bring so much humor. You're hilarious. And
it's why
you
I'm
help
the
the cause.
Jew. And I really agree with that. And that's why for me... when I'm doing them, and yeah, sure, it's a paycheck too. I no pro bonos here. I got 4 kids in yeshiva. But when I do them for me, and I almost always do them at a heavily discounted fee, but that's not even it. For me, it's so much more about the mitzvah and the cause. For me, it's about I'm taking this cause, whatever it is, and sometimes it's diseases, and sometimes it's Israel, and sometimes it's whatever. It's taking this serious, real cause, and while the whole night we're shining a light on this cause in a really, serious way, when you go out and get dressed up and get a babysitter and all that stuff, you don't just want to be preached to and have the rubber chicken. You still want to be entertained and or inspired. And, the rabbi will get up there and inspire and the message and the whole thing. But without fun, without like laughing and leaving, that place going, wow, what a great cause. I want to get more involved in. Boy, did we have fun. We were laughing for it was so much fun. And then they come back the following year. Then they get more involved in the organization. They support it. So this is not an advertisement from me. Just get any comedian. I happen to be the best. But get any, I happen to be the top. But get any comedian to do your dinner. Don't make people go out at night to your little Beverly Wilshire, Beverly Hilton, or any of those hotels and sit there and listen to your problems and your cause without giving them some entertainment value. Because when people go out, they want to have fun. So what you just said, I appreciate it. I thank you.
And I mean it.
And it really is one of the things that makes me most proud, that I have this thing where, I could do comedy clubs and they're just whatever, that's just making people laugh, and that's still a good humanitarian cause. Laughter is the best medicine. Not really. But anyway, but then there's this where this other side to me and this whole career that I have as, a comedian that performs at these events and these fundraisers. It is rewarding. I'm not just making people laugh. I'm sort of doing something that elevates the cause and makes people even get more involved in the cause because they had a good time. So thank you.
I
for saying
appreciate that. All right, we're ending on the
Speaking
lightning
of
round.
having a good time, is anyone having a good time
We're-
listening?
We're ending on
to
the
this
lightning round
podcast?
now.
Uh-oh.
And we could still
Fasten your yarmulkes.
We could still beat SAG.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
How many awards have you won?
Either
by the way? You have a
either
lot of
or.
awards here.
Okay, either or. Ready? Are you
Yes.
ready? You have to make a choice.
Either or.
New York or LA?
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
That's such a hard choice. And you know what? In my life, I never made the choice. Why? Because I spend the school year, September to June, in LA, and June to end of August in New York. So I don't make the choice. I'm from New York. I still consider myself a New Yorker, but man, do I love LA. So I couldn't make the choice. I would do what I do now. LA most of the year, especially during the winter, and New York for the summer. I will not make that choice.
All right. Tel Aviv or Jerusalem?
Jerusalem.
Oh, there you go. See, you made a choice.
Oh, that's easy because Jerusalem has the holiness and the fun, has the great restaurants and the kotel. It's like, come on, Tel Aviv is fun, but it ain't no Jerusalem.
Gefilte fish or chopped liver?
Chopped liver.
Oh.
Unless the gefilte fish is really sweet, has the grain, you know what grain
Yeah.
is? The what's it called? Horseradish.
Horseradish, yeah.
But like also
The
sweet
white
horseradish.
horseradish. No, you like the red horseradish.
Anybody that likes white horseradish has severe mental issues. Like you need to really go back and think, what is it about me that I like white horseradish? A horseradish that nobody likes.
You just took down my wife.
Uh-oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about you. But nobody except you and your wife. Maybe that's why you were meant to be together. You're the only two people who like white horseradish.
Do you know why we're meant to be together? My wife's job is she's a psychoanalyst.
Oh, there's so much to analyze about you, Jay,
Yes,
by the way.
I
So
know,
much.
I
The
know.
fact that you need this podcast and that you eat
Last
white
question.
horseradish.
The last question.
So much going on.
Every
there.
single guest.
Can't laugh
Hardest
except
question.
at my own misery.
The hardest question, right before your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing anything special for your birthday?
We're gonna have a nice little Shabbos dinner / birthday dinner. Few people, just nothing crazy. It's not a milestone.
Is it because I don't always get my mail that I missed that invitation?
No. I'll tell you why you missed it. Because you weren't invited to it.
Okay.
Because I will not have someone grin and stare at me at my own birthday dinner. I will have people who laugh and enjoy themselves.
Okay.
No, you're invited, Jay.
All right,
Come
all
anytime.
right,
You have
all
an
right.
open invite.
All right. Last question. Rugula or babka?
Well, that is tough. That is tough. Both chocolate?
If you want.
Both chocolate. Because I'll tell you this. I'd go for the cinnamon arugula. What is it called? Rugula, not arugula. Arugula is another
Rugelach.
thing. Rugelach.
Rugelach.
That's why you're throwing me with your rugula.
Rugelach.
It's rugelach.
Rugelach.
Right. I'd go for the cinnamon rugelach and the chocolate babka. So again, I can't make that this decision. It's too difficult.
Elon, thank you for making
Wait a minute. How much time? We didn't talk about anything. We didn't talk about Roseanne. I want to beat Saget so badly. Do these get more widely heard if they're shorter, you think?
Yes.
Maybe we should end it.
Yes.
Maybe what's more important
48
than beating
minutes.
Saget's 61-minute record? How long was it?
I'll check.
Maybe what's more important than beating Saget is having this be more heard than Bob Saget.
That's exactly right.
Let's end it.
That's exactly right.
Good night, everybody. Thank
Right.
you for having me, Jay. Shana Tova.
And thank you very much for self-sacrificing
Yes.
your time to be on a podcast that you don't believe in.
I do believe. I believe in no podcast. It's not
Right.
just your podcast.
No, I didn't
Right.
take it. I take most things personally,
Right.
but not that.
And I self-sacrificed a lot, like my ego, my self-worth, just by being here and watching you not laugh at me. Worse than not laugh at me, you not laughed at my comedy. You actually laughed at me several times. You didn't laugh when I was trying to be funny. See, you
I
just
think
laugh
you're always.
now.
I want you to know something. You are a hilarious.
I'm all right. I do
You're a
okay.
hilarious person.
Every now and then.
with the heart of gold.
Oh, that's nice.
We
should have
and
more
I think everybody should Google everything you've ever done.
Thank you.
And
as Howard Stern would say, we will be right back after these words. Jay, we've said it all. We've done it all. And we'll be back after these words, Robin.
thank you, my friend.
Thank you.